Well, let's go live now to Delhi and talk to our correspondent Vineet Khare, who is there for us. And Vineet, it sounds absolutely desperate. I was listening to one statistic of 243 new infections every minute there.
Matthew, there is fear, there is panic, and visuals of people dying for a lack of oxygen on the street, people not finding ICU beds and dying at home, people not finding oxygen cylinders, ventilators, and forced to stay at home when they need critical care and dying. We don't know the scale, but an activist I spoke to said that the death numbers of people dying at home is exploding. Hospitals sending out SOS, pleading for oxygen, that they have oxygen left for an hour or 45 minutes, or they have no oxygen at all, and that has put the patients, COVID patients, in jeopardy. A woman I spoke to said that the hospital asked her to sign a document that if something happens to her husband for a lack of oxygen in the hospital would not be responsible. Social media is flooded with calls for help, people putting out their mobile numbers, tagging ministers, Prime Minister's office, Chief Minister, pleading for the lives of their loved ones, their mothers and fathers. I have lost relatives and friends, and people I speak to have lost friends and relatives. It's a desperate situation, and there is fear that if you are infected by this virus, you could end up suffering the same fate, perhaps dying on the street.
Every aspect of what you've just gone through sounds absolutely awful and critical, and you talk about the desperation of people, and they have been turning to the black market, haven't they? I was reading that people are paying more than $1,000 for an oxygen cylinder that normally costs about $80.
Because you cannot find oxygen cylinders legally. You can't find remdesivir or other medicines at shops. A friend I spoke to said that he had to spend around up to £500 to get an oxygen cylinder. So there's talk of collapse in the system, collapse in the health infrastructure, the way the people have to queue up outside crematoriums to cremate their loved ones. Burial places have run out of space. So there is absolute desperation here.
And Vineet, a final thought then, in terms of what the authorities are saying, the government, any sort of new strategy to navigate a way through, has there been any new initiatives given just the pressure they're under, and how much backlash has there been about criticism of the government being taken down from social media?
The government has made certain efforts. There is an Oxygen Express, a train specifically for oxygen running. Money has been allotted to set up a few hundred temporary oxygen plants. The government has asked industrial houses to divert oxygen for medical use, but doctors and experts I speak to say these are not having visible impacts on the ground. And social media story that you mentioned, it depends on who you speak to. A pro-government person would say that this is not the time to point fingers, and you should be offering solutions. But a critic of this Modi government would say that this is another expression or a step wherein people's freedom of expression have been suppressed, and the government is trying to manage the narrative.
Vineet Khare, we'll leave it there, but thanks very much for taking us through all of those different strands. Thanks very much.